A lot of people quote passages about wars and rumors of wars, but very few actually examine what the Messiah Yahusha meant when he said those words. Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Facts of Light live stream podcast. This live stream is now officially called the Hour of Power. This is a place where we explore scripture and ask the deeper questions many people overlook. Today, I have my guest host, Leah, and we're going to look at how people interpret those passages and what they might actually be saying. Leah? Leah, I think you're still muted. Leah,
Hi.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
I can
Can
hear
you hear me?
you.
All
Yeah.
righty. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much. I just want to say, I just want to give praises and honor to the Most High Yahuwah today for another Shabbat. I'm just very thankful.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and I'm so thankful to be able to be here and to just I'm just so full. I just really don't know what to say right now, but I'm just thankful.
Well, it's nice to have you on, Miss Leah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over some scriptures about what we know so far about the wars going on, right? Because like I said, you got a lot of things going on about wars and rumors of wars, but
Yes,
now we
indeed.
got, right. So, but
That's right.
today we got some stuff to cover because it's some real interesting stuff. So we
Some
can
real
start,
stuff
yep.
going
So we can start it off with some prayer and then we'll kick it off from there.
on. Okay.
Abiyah, in the name of Yahusha Thuda for this scripture time, for the scripture study. Thank you, Yah, for those listening and those around who will be listening. I ask that, Yah, that this is edifying and that it's enlightening to those who hear. Please let it be a blessing for them. Forgive us, Yah, of any transgression, any crimes that we've done against your will, anything that we said or thought in our action, in our words, in our minds, with our actions, Yah. Forgive us. Help us to do better and be better in the name of Yahusha. And also thank you, Yah, for the food that you have allowed us to have for this Shabbat, even though it's not the best of food physically, but Yah, let it sustain us to be able to help us to prepare for what's to come, for what you have for us in the name of Yahusha. And also to let your word, your spiritual word be a nourishment for our spirit, our body, and healing in Yahusha's name. And every word that we speak, please guide our tongues to let it be edifying and enlightening so that others can benefit. In Yahusha's name, this I pray. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yes, let's get down to the nitty gritty here.
Do it.
There's some things going on right now today.
Yes.
I mean, today that is letting us know that our redemption, what does that scripture say about our redemption draws what?
Draweth nigh.
There it is.
Yeah.
Like they say, there it is.
Yeah.
It's we folks. I just have to say, I mean, if you can't see it, if you really just don't see anything right now, you need to check yourself out. If you're not suspecting something, then you need to check yourself out. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's all in the air. It's in the air.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Now,
and I know everybody if if you're not living under a rock, you know what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And I know that this is one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be really, this is my topic. This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how this war right now, this stuff that's going on right now. I don't know if I can say that word, if it's one of the algorithms going to pick it up, but I don't know. But I want to talk about how this right now was happening, how it is related or how it is prophetic with these holy scriptures. Okay. Yeah. I don't like to say the word holy. I say separated scriptures. Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, and I know everybody know this. Okay. I would like to put the news clipping up if we could possibly do that right now. What has just happened? And this was just a couple of days ago. Let me just say what has happened. I'm just going to go on and say I'm pretty sure people already heard about it, but this is actually in the news. And I was just listening to the news, and this reporter was talking about the U.S. plane that went down, but it had, obviously people, Americans on there, and probably some people that are affiliated with the military. But anywho, what has happened was the plane was shot down. Okay. That's how it was reported. Plane just shot down. All right. This is information that has come out. They said right now, Iran is actually being schooled and supplied with resources from by Russia. Okay. And now we already know that they're allies, right?
Yeah.
We already know that
didn't you send me a video too about Trump losing control over the Iran situation too?
Yes. That's why I said, "What you show these clips? You guys got to see this." But check this out. Listen to this. These people, Russia is giving them intelligence. They are supplying them with intelligence, and I don't know. If you're military, you will understand that terminology, what I mean by intelligence. So what they're doing is they are basically telling them or showing them or giving them technology to be able to tamper or to destroy the United States aircraft. Okay. So this is called electronic warfare, basically, is what I'm saying. It's an electronic warfare is what they're teaching or giving them. And I heard that they gave them this most powerful weapon. It's called the KC-135. It's a very powerful weapon that they're giving them, and they have schooled them on that and trained them. But basically, what I'm saying is, and what I want to get to is just so that we know this, and what's really strange is that this news is out, which is kind of strange to me. For one thing, I've never heard of when there's a war, everybody's talking about who's giving who. Iran is going to start attacking us over here on our land in California. It's a lot of talk. And that's another thing that's very suspicious. But anyway, I believe all this information is out to us and is given, is available to us because of Scripture, because Scripture told us this was going to happen. He wants us to see, the Most High wants us to see that this stuff is going just the way He said it. So He's allowing these things to come out. So I believe that some of it is probably, a lot of propaganda and lies, but He is allowing us to hear this. Okay. That's why He's putting it out here like this. Okay, so we already know. Okay, I'm just going to talk about this real quick. Iran they already have their ally, right? They got Russia. Like I just said, they supplying them with this most powerful weapon. I heard it was called the KC. I'm not a military person, but this is just what the news is saying. They supplied them with this KC-135, and they gave them, they showed them, they're sharing their intelligence equipment, or is giving them an intelligence tactics to be able to use drones and satellite imagery and all that to be able to see our aircraft. So they have their help, right? Then I hear this, and this is the news that's really shocking. How the United States allies, such as France, right? Isn't it France? It was the other one, Germany. They don't want to help. They said they're not getting involved. What is going on? And someone told me, and I had mentioned this to somebody else. Listen to this, man. I mentioned this to somebody else. I said, the United States, their allies they're going to back down. They're not going to help in this situation. They said, oh, no, they have to help because they're part of NATO. They have to. So if they're part of NATO, is this correct? I've never was really a political science person. That wasn't me, but I didn't really care for that too much because I've always in my heart knew it was almost like something staged. But anyway, she said that, that they're part of NATO, they have to be ally. They have to fight and help them fight. These
Right.
people are not helping the United States. They
Nope.
said bye-bye. Okay.
They turning on the thought.
They okay. Now tell me this is not scripture. They turning on the whore.
Turning on the thought.
Babylon. The whore is being turned against. They're turning on Babylon. Okay. If we go over and look at Jeremiah 51:11, look at Isaiah 13:17, whichever one you want to start.
We got this. Well, we got the lineup. I already got the lineup. We can just start it off with start it off with Obadiah, but this is the video though that you suggested to me. But
well, I'm glad you got that video. Put that video up. I don't want people to think I'm talking out the side of my head. You know, I don't want you guys to think that this is me just making stuff up, because I don't make anything up. I listen to the news when I need to, because he told us to watch and pray. So you should be listening right now, folks, because you got to know when it's almost time to do what you got to do.
Right. So what I can do, we can probably play a little bit of this then, just a little bit, you know, for after we get done with this. But I can just go straight into scripture though. Let's try to go into the scripture though, because you sent me, because I saw, what was it, Obadiah 11, chapter 1. It's only one Obadiah, but chapter 1, verse 11. So I'll go here. Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this has to deal with like the betrayal, which is like Edom, right? The brother Edom, Esau, and is tricked by his own allies. So those who ate his bread set a trap under him. So like, let's see, let's read it. So we got verse, we can start at verse 10. Let's start at verse 10 and then go down to 11.
Okay.
It says, verse 10, it says, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, which is our people, right? Hebrew, right? Shame shall cover thee. Okay, for violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Okay, this is the prophecy against Esau, Edom. Okay, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem. Okay, even thou wast as one of them. So basically, this is telling you here as a prophecy of Obadiah is basically in this word here. He's telling you that what Esau once did to Jacob during the time of the 70 AD raid, Esau was also on the raid. Esau was in on that raid when it came to 70 AD of the Hebrews getting raided, you know, and they had to disperse throughout the African continent, and that's how the African diaspora came about. Okay, of Hebrew people. That this has to deal with that because Esau was also in on the lick. So this is prophecy, because just like what they did to us, now Yah is saying it's a clapback where you are gonna go through the same fate. In fact, it's gonna be worse. So that's what I got out of that. And then if you want to know where I'm going through, where it's like why Edom is called Babylon, or why Edom is associated with Babylon, because Edom and Babylon, it's like two sides of the same coin. So when you hear anybody talk about Babylon being judged or whatever, just know Esau, Edom, is associated with it. So let's do Psalms 137 real quick.
Psalms 137.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes. So this is isn't it something? How can you say that these scriptures are not true? How can you say? Right. That's because it's you got to read it. We weren't taught to read the Bible like this. We were not taught to do precepts. We weren't taught these things. We weren't taught, and it's for a reason.
Yeah.
We weren't taught this because if by us knowing this, we could see what's going on.
Yeah.
So we're at Psalms. What is it?
This is 137. I got it highlighted. We could start at 4 and then just jump down to 9.
Okay.
So let me know when you're ready, because then I'll just go start reading out.
So
it says, how shall we sing? So it says, how shall we sing Yahuwah's song in a strange land? And that's for sure. How can people party and stuff and sing and dance and do all these things? And this is a strange place. This place is creepy. I don't know about you, but
Extremely.
this America is creepy. Okay, but
Really.
let me just keep going though. But it says, verse 5, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. Okay, if I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Verse 7 says, remember, O Yahuwah, the children of Edom. See that Esau, Edom, in the day of Jerusalem. Who said, raise it or level it, right? Level it, make it bare, even to the foundation thereof. Okay, that's what Edom, Esau people were doing. That's what they were saying during that time of the raid. They were in on it. They were like, make it bare. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Do you see that? O daughter of Babylon, this place, the US of A, is the daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. So happy shall he be that rewards thee as thou hast served us. So happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stone. There you go. So this is this a link with the daughter of Babylon, are linked to the same breath of judgment for the destruction of Jerusalem. So there you go. So so this is like basically this is like a legal lawsuit Yahusha or Yah, you could say Yah is doing. It's a legal lawsuit he got against Edom and Babylon. It's a legal lawsuit. That's why you're saying that the nations are turning off the whore. It's because it's part of the lawsuit. It's part of the
Sure is.
lawsuit.
Part of the lawsuit. Says the Allies turning on Babylon, great nation. And it talks about the great nations from the north are going to do it, are going to
Yeah.
destroy Babylon. And that was something. Now, I remember a long time reading this, and I always looked at this as like we were kind of taught that this was like the end. That means that this is the end. This is the
Yeah.
end of the world. It's the end of the world.
No, it's not the end of the world. It's
That's how that's how it was
yeah,
taught.
it's not the end of the world, because remember in Matthew 24, Yahusha said wars and rumors of wars, but the end is not yet. He said that, and it's in there. If you read it, he said all these things will happen: earthquakes in various places, wars, rumors of wars, but the end is not yet, because that means there's more to come. There's still more years that have to take place. This is just, we're at the tipping point of it's just like you going up a what you call it, you're on a roller coaster and you going up the thing, you going like until you get to the top. And then when you get to the top, then you just drop, and then you go through all the loops and the turns and all that. Right now we're at the where you are going up the ladder or going up the hill, up the slope. But in a minute, we getting ready to do a drop, and then we're gonna go through all these loops and all these twists and all this stuff. That's what's building right now, is the anticipation, like you on a roller coaster, you going up, just like. So that's all this is. That's what you're feeling. That's why you see the prices high and all that.
You're supposed to be feeling it though, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to.
Be seeing that, but some people are not seeing it. Wake up,
they're
folks.
not. Yeah,
Wake
but
up, folks. Wake up, folks, to the word. You got to wake up.
You got to wake up, because
can't be asleep right now.
This is a part of the judgment, because remember, judgment starts at the house anyway. And that's why a lot of people in Yah, or a lot of people in the church and all that, they're like, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to, for this day to come, oh, God is on his way back and all, they all talking like that. You don't want, listen, it's not going to be pretty. You don't want to really hoop and holler for it, because you best to be prepared, because when that time comes, first of all, you got to go to the mountains, 3.5 years. Then after you do that, then you got to go ahead, wait on a messenger to come and get you. Then after that, then you go ahead and your exodus of walking out takes place. Then after that, then you got to meet the Messiah, and then you got to go ahead and pass under the right. So you see that it's a lot of things that have to take place. So a lot of people are just jumping the gun, even with this whole thing about
saying they're not going to leave too. You know that, don't you? Some people are saying they're not going to leave, and I was just reading today. Yes, I was just reading today with another sister. Okay, and and I was reading. We were talking about how the people that plan on just staying behind, that are not going to leave. They're not going to go to the wilderness. They're not going to go to the mountains. They're not going. They're not fleeing, because they're so attached to this world, this earth, this country or whatever you want to call it. They can't
Yeah.
leave. Or it could be just
Right.
that they're oblivious and they don't know where to go. A lot of people
Right.
are not going to leave because they don't know what to do. They
Right.
don't know, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to be raptured up out of here. There's a
Right.
rapture. Okay, you
Right.
still got the rapture talk out there. Unfortunately, it's not funny. I try to, because I have family members that believe in that, and that it's really concerning to me. So I may be laughing or
Right.
joking about it, but it's really not a
Right.
joking matter because
Well, we
there's
can
no
just
way you
we,
can
we can
survive
just
that.
squash that. We could just squash that rapture thing right here in just like 10 seconds. You ready? First of all,
Mhm.
just like I said before, how did Yashriel, how did they leave when they left Egypt? What guided them out?
A cloud.
A cloud. It guided them out. So just like how they left in a cloud and then a pillar of fire was behind them to protect them at night or led them at night, right? Then
Mhm.
how is the same? How are we, just like I said, nothing is new under the sun. Look at that video.
Nope.
So how, if that happened before, how are we leaving out again? If Paul said we will be caught up in the cloud, people are thinking they're flying. No, it means that you are being surrounded in the same
Mhm.
cloud that God used to get the Israelites out when they left Egypt.
That's right.
And then just follow that cloud,
Yes,
right?
that's right. That's right.
So
But
that's
they
the
don't get
same
it.
thing. You just go ahead. That's why I like that song that Eshawn Burgundy, shout out to him. But it's that rapper Eshawn Burgundy when he made that song, "Put Me on Speaker, Don't Put Me on Silent." He was
Oh,
telling you in that
good, good.
song.
Thanks, Eshawn Burgundy, for that. That's a
Yeah,
great song, great
what's
tune.
the,
Yeah,
what's that name called? What's the name of that song called? It's called "Spirit
really good
Willing" by
music.
Eshawn Burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
Eshawn
Mm-hmm.
Burgundy, like he was like, we moving off the cloud ahead of us. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, we moving off the cloud ahead of us. That mean, even though people might be taking it like, yeah, the cloud, is leading me. The cloud of Yah is leading me. But if you think about it, it's prophetic too. A cloud is going to lead
Mm-hmm.
you out just like before.
That's right.
Nothing new
That's how
under the
we're
sun.
doing. Nothing is
So,
new, but
so
people want to make up stuff and say, "Oh
yeah,
no, we're gonna float out of here. We're gonna
be,
zap out of here like the bug zapper."
look,
The bug
look,
zapper. They can
look,
zip zap.
look,
I'm out of here.
look. Be like, beam me up, Scotty. Like Star Trek.
Right.
Beam me
Right.
up. You know.
It's like, hey, I'm
So,
out of here. I'm gone. It
so
sounds like some
no,
eggs frying. Like somebody
right.
frying some eggs around here, or did somebody just get raptured?
Right, exactly. So, and then a lot of people too were selling their stuff. They were selling all their property and stuff. Like, for real, man.
Mm.
You
And
selling
and
all
the
your
mean people and the cruel
because you
people,
thought it was
you
a
got some
rap.
people out here that played off on the ignorance. Remember, you got some people out here that's cruel. They're gonna play off on your ignorance.
Right,
Okay, you're selling off your property and all that,
right, right,
or they're gonna be standing in line. They're not gonna tell you the truth because remember,
right,
this is a wicked world. This world is
right.
wicked. Especially if you're not walking in truth, it's
Yeah,
wicked, and they will suck you dry.
yeah.
You see, you're gonna sell all your things. Somebody gonna be standing in line saying, "Hey," or give it
Crazy.
away. Some people give it away because they want to do a good thing. They never gave nothing away in their life. Never gave anything away. But
Right.
because it's a rapture now, I think, oh, it's a rapture. I'm giving my stuff away. I'm gonna start giving today because I know the time is near. I'm gonna start giving away and start doing all the things I should have been doing before.
Junk is
Isn't
crazy.
that about something? You
So
better get to the truth. You better know the truth.
that's what I'm saying. So,
The truth
just
will
that's why
make you
that's why
free.
you gotta that's why precepts, like I said, that's why you gotta study for yourself. Precepts, you'll see right through like when you do the word for yourself instead of just relying on YouTube and all of this stuff, just people telling you, and study for yourself, just X out
Mhm.
everybody and spend time in the word alone. You will
Yep.
see through 99.9% of all the baloney you see in the world
Mhm.
today.
Yep.
You will
Yep.
see through it. You will see and notice that people, even the ones who are talking in Yah, are off.
Mhm.
They're wrong. You'll
Yep.
see it. So
Just
that's
because
why
they
it's just
calling
like,
on you, they know the truth. Oh yeah, remember that
yeah,
people because
yeah,
they know we know who Yah is. They know who
right,
Yahushua
exactly,
is. They know to say his name. They even say the name and they even spell the name right. Okay, that
right,
doesn't matter. They
right,
because they're wrong too. You got to
right.
study yourself. It's a study to show thyself approved, a
That's
workman
what.
unto Yah, rightly dividing the word. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we got to study for ourselves because there's some wolves out here in sheep's clothing, and there's some people that
Right.
really actually, I don't really like to call them wolves because they really actually just don't know. You know,
Right.
some people just don't know, and they don't mean any harm by it. They're just, ignorant or
Right.
lack of knowledge.
Right.
But
But a lot of
we don't like to use the word ignorant because ignorant means you willfully have rejected. That's an ignorant
but
person, willfully
man,
rejected.
ignorant, but that's the thing though. Ignorance, this ignorance going on today, it is a choice because that's why Yah said he gives them over to strong delusion because they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
love for the truth. People, like it's just like you said, your friend said, everybody don't,
Mm-hmm.
and he's dead now, and like but
Yeah.
but look at what happened though. He was like, everybody ain't in the truth like you. I'm
They
like,
did.
and
That's
he
what
never,
they told
and
me.
he never
They
lied.
said,
He never
"Hey, Leah, everybody ain't in the truth like you.
he never
So why
lied.
are you trying to push the truth on people?"
He never
I
lied.
said, I'm just doing what's in my heart because I'm the kind of person because I'm so engulfed and I don't even like to use the word in love because he is love. I'm
Yeah.
so into Yahuwah. My whole conversation, everything I talk about, everything I live and breathe is going to be Him. So
Yeah.
if you are going to be in my presence or I'm in yours, you're going to hear me talk about Him. You're going to hear me say the things of Yah. Okay,
Yeah.
but this person tells me they're sick of hearing me say it. They're like, look, Leah, everybody's not into to the truth like that. Everybody ain't
Right.
into it like that. We don't want to hear that all day. That was
Right.
something
And I
now they
and
not hearing.
and
And they
he's
not
never
hearing
lied.
it.
And he never lied because a lot of people, and that's why they're confused. They going off of just what people say on YouTube. They don't know what to do. And when the stuff pops off, they won't know what to do because they don't have a
Mhm.
love for the truth. But you don't wish you did because you see what's happening now. So that's why
And
it's
then
just
people
like
look at
people like
numbers.
that.
People look
That's
at
why people
numbers.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
people like that. It's just like just shake the
Mhm.
dust off your feet and keep rolling. They'll remember what you said and did. They'll remember. But
People look at
just keep going.
numbers.
Yeah.
They
People look at
listen to the
numbers.
people with the numbers.
Yeah,
I
and
know. Well,
that's
they got a
another
million
thing.
watchers. People are
Right.
watching them, so they gotta be telling the truth. Wide is the
Right.
gate to destruction. Narrow is the gate to righteousness, if you find it. Okay.
Yeah.
I really personally would want to look at people that no one's looking at. It's usually the little
Yeah.
small places where it's like it's fire, it's big things coming out. Little small
Oh
places,
yeah.
the big things are coming out. But they
Yeah.
people want to follow the crowd. Well, I know they
Yeah.
got this, or the
Right.
popularity, or
Because you
what
see,
makes
look,
you feel good.
because you're right, because it affirms you, or you see 1.2 million or
Yeah.
1.25 thousand, followers, and them
Yeah.
be the ones that be just dishing out garbage. Remember, all the good stuff is never really advertised anyway. So the thing
Nope.
is, it's like people get caught up in the numbers and how long they've been in the truth or how long they've been teaching and preaching the word and stuff and looking at your age and stuff like that. That's so unwise.
Mhm.
That's why you get
Nope.
caught up. That's why even with the numbers, you looking at statistics. That's why people went and got that tattoo cream. So
Yep.
that's another thing.
And a
It's
lot
not
of other things they
wise.
run and do.
Right. So
And what
here,
are they
so
gonna do
let's
now? What are they gonna do
right. So
now?
let
What's gonna happen? They got the
right.
tattoo cream last time. What's gonna happen this time? Where they gonna go? Stay right at home, keep their door
Exactly.
closed. They ain't gonna go
Exactly.
nowhere.
So study to
Okay.
show yourself approved, be a Berean, investigate the word for yourself. You'll go a long way. So let's try this though. Because a lot of people are mistaken that whole war II with Russia and all of that as the Gog Magog war. Let's squash this real quick right now. We can go over it later another time, but if you pay attention to the timeline, your timeline is off. You think this is a Gog and Magog war because in Revelation, after the millennial reign, is when the Gog and Magog war starts. So that's just squashed right there.
Mhm.
So, but let's keep it reading though. Let's keep it flowing though. We got Jeremiah 50, verse 9, I think you brought that up earlier, Leah.
Yeah.
It says,
Yeah.
"For lo, behold, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country." See that? "And they shall
Mm-hmm.
set themselves in array against her." Who is her? That's the whore. That's Babylon. From thence shall she be taken, and their arrow shall be as of a mighty expert man, and none shall return in vain. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith Yahuwah. Verse 11 says, because you were glad, because you rejoiced. See, because like Edom, Esau, they were like raised. They were glad about that stuff. They were, you know, it says, oh, you destroyers of my heritage, because you are grown fat as the heifer at grass, right? That heifer got, you know, you getting full off of this stuff and bellow as bulls, right? And then now verse 12, I can read this real quick. Your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. And that's the destiny of this place. It's going to be just a dry desert land full of monsters.
Demons. Yeah.
Full of boogeymen, for real. So
talk about a haunted house.
Right. That's why I said this place is creepy, and it's only going to get creepier. Jeremiah 50, that's why he best ready to leave. So Jeremiah 50,
it's time to go, folks. Time to go.
Right. Jeremiah 51:28.
If you are so attached to your belongings right now, people, those of you that say, oh, I can't leave my house. You know how much money I spent on this house. I'm still not paying for my house. I wouldn't leave. Okay.
Right.
When that stuff, I'm gonna call it stuff, really hits the fan. It's hitting the fan right now, but when it really start coming out, let's see how much you love your house then, or your belongings that you can't really get rid of. That's why he said we're not supposed to idolize anything. Nothing should come before our Creator, our Lua, Yahuwah. Nothing. So if you got something, this is a time right now to start examining yourself. Ask yourself, can I just walk away right now? That's what people need to do right now. Just sit here and ask yourself, can I just leave? Could you just leave? You know? Can you just walk away from your stuff? I'm telling you, nothing on this earth. There's absolutely nothing on this earth that could make me that I could put before Yahuwah. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He tell me to put it down, I'm putting it down. Go, I'm moving. And people say, well, how do you know that's him doing it? You know how you know? Because of the word. The word is right here. This is where my faith is, in his word. He said, my word will not return void. If it's in the word, that's what I'm going to do. I have faith in it. It's like somebody give you their word. You give you their word. That's their word. And you take it, you believe in it, then you're going to run with it.
Yeah.
Same here. That's what I'm doing.
I got verse 27.
If you want to be my friend because of that, then oh well.
Right.
Nice knowing you. And then again, maybe it wasn't nice knowing you.
Right. I got verse 27. It says, set ye up a standard. That standard is a banner, like a sign, and blow the trumpet among the nations. Prepare the nations against her. See that? Prepare the nations against her. Call together against her.
That's it.
So these are the kingdoms.
Man, read that again. It said what? Prepare what?
It says set up a standard. This is the sign, a banner in the land. Blow the trumpet among the nations. Prepare the nations against her. Call together against her the kingdoms of Arat. Many sounds like a name, like some lady named Minnie. And Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz. That's Germany. Ashkenaz.
Ashkenaz. Oh, those people over there. Them people over there in Israel right now in that land. What are they called?
Ashkenazi.
Oh, do you see some relation there? Okay. Okay. People, are you listening to this? I hope people are listening to this. I hope it makes sense. I hope it's like registering. It should be registering right now.
But Ashkenaz, though, you see where that's like Germany and stuff. And of course, like when it comes to the beast, and we can get into that too real quick, if I can, for enough time. The beast, where you have the 10 horns, represent the 10 kingdoms, the powers that the rulers, the kingdoms, the powers that are of today. And one of those powers is Germany. So Ashkenaz would fit into this description of Germany, where, you know, they're a part of this betrayal on the whore. And it says, appoint a captain against her. Cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars, okay, or the rough, what does it say, the bristling locust. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes. Now, a lot of people will say Medes is like Medes is Medo-Persia, which is people are connecting it to modern day Russia and Iran. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense if you're looking at what's going on today. Of course, now when it comes to the Persians, Iran, I did some studying on it. Now, the real Medo-Persia back in the day, it was in Africa, like in the land of Africa over there by Sudan area, Ashur area, all that whole area over there, Kenya area, Sudan, South Sudan. That was the real land of the Medo-Persian Empire area. However, though, and it's some scriptures that I found where it could lead to where they moved or migrated, and then they ended up there into this modern day Persia. This modern day Iran, Persia is not the real land anyway. First of all, that's why people are confused.
Right,
it's not the real land.
That's what I was just getting ready to get to, because a lot of people, I was talking to one of my sisters today on the phone. We were talking about where, they were saying, well, the people are going to be leaving the Israel. They're going to get out of there. They're going to have to get out of there. I'm like, well, get out of where? I said, our land right now is rubbish.
Right. Now, however,
that land, so they believe that land over there that those people are on is the place that's Israel. That's not. How can that little place, and I don't know if anybody has ever visited over there. If you ever go over there, just go over there and look. It looks like a prop. It looks like a stage. It's very, very good.
And it's the size of New Jersey.
Of Belle Isle. I mean, you
guys or New Jersey,
from a different area of the country. You know what area of the country I'm coming from if I say Belle Isle. Okay.
Look,
but that's the size of that.
They're fighting over a piece of land that's the size of Long Island, New York. So
at Long Island.
You see what I'm saying? So, but that's not enough to house. That's not enough to
house. You know about that too.
That's not enough to house all of Yashra.
No. It would not.
So, but you got the Medes. But you got the Medes, though, these Persians, right? The Medes, Persians. Now, even though, and it said that 60%, and the statistics that I read, 60% of them are like the real originators of the Medo-Persian Empire, right? Or whatever. That 60%, that's a little over a half. But what about that other dose? It's clearly fake, people. So the thing is, though, is that they replaced that location. But no matter the geographic location, even if it's a different geographic location, just like how Babylon, the real Babylon, was over there in Africa too, these are different geographic locations. That's not the issue. The issue that you want to mainly focus on is the dual prophecy of the descriptive text.
Because the dual get yourself prophecy, ready to get out of here too.
Right.
That's what they want to focus on.
Right, because basically the bottom line, the bottom line of the dual prophecy in the descriptive text has to deal with other countries, major powers coming to destroy the whore, which is this place. So that's really the concept you want to understand, is that other major powers on the other side of the world are teaming up to hit the drop on site. This place, you see what I'm saying?
And people should like be able to see it right now, that the scriptures are the truth. Yes, people should be able to see the scriptures are telling the truth. What I want to point out too is that the scripture specifically says that they will turn on the whore. And look what is happening.
Right.
What's happening? Right. They are not the allies of the U.S. They don't want to have anything to do with this. Okay, and that was the last report that I've seen on the news. Not that it's changed, I haven't heard it, but those of you that are
but the thing is, you still can see it, because look at the BRICS. They're creating their own economic system. So